In this video, we're going to take a look at the 18 different types of Pokemon there are and see what are the advantages and disadvantages to using them as a basic type in Pokemon battles. Hi, I'm John, a relatively new Pokemon player who's accepted the challenge to participate in the 2025 North America Pokemon Championships with the goal of winning at least one match. In this video, we're going to take a look at what is rock, paper, scissors, look at a slightly more complicated version of that in rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, and then finally be able to apply that information and that understanding into what are the different Pokemon types and their advantages and disadvantages in battle. There are over 1,000 different Pokemon in the video games and scattered across the Pokemon universe. Now this sounds intimidating to me as a new player, but luckily each of these Pokemon is going to be characterized by one or possibly two different types or characteristics they're going to fit into that are going to explain their advantages and disadvantages in Pokemon battling. As a new player to Pokemon battles, I've taken a look at various videos and web pages for advice on how to get started. One of the most important things that people say is that you need to learn this chart. And so we take a look at this chart. Along the left-hand side over here, we've got the attacker types. These attacker types are going to be in the rows. And along the top over here, we've got the defender types. And so basically you can take a look at this. And so a normal attacker against a normal defender is going to come into this category right here. However, this looks really complicated. If we break down this chart, we've got 18 different attacker types and 18 different defender types, which gives us a total of 324 combinations or squares on this table. Now, luckily, 204 of these are empty. That basically means if it's blank, it shows up just as white, kind of as it is kind of right here. That means that there's no advantage or disadvantage between the attackers and defenders. And so any attacks are going to be ×1. It's going to be a straightforward attack. However, the other squares on this table have important information. There are going to be 120 squares here in which the attacks are going to be affected by the types that are involved, either the attacker advantages or disadvantages or the defender advantages or disadvantages. And so if we take a look at this, 51 of them are going to be green boxes. In this, we're going to be taking a look at the attacker having an advantage in the battle based on their characteristics. And so what that means is that their attacks are going to be ×2. They're going to be doubly effective. And that's, the goal in this game is to be most effective at attacking the opponent and knocking them out, causing them to faint. We're going to have 61 squares or boxes in here in red that say ×1/2. In that case, that means the attacker has a disadvantage. Their attack against that defender is going to have half of the effectiveness. It's going to be half as good as if it was to be attacking somebody else. And that means a serious disadvantage. And then finally, we've got 8 boxes in which we've got a black with a 0. And this basically means that the attack is ineffective. And so if we take a look at the example here, a normal attacker against a ghost defender is going to have no effect. You can battle it all day with this combination and you're not going to have an effect. You're not going to knock out that Pokemon. So if we focus in on the upper corner of this table, we can get an idea what's going to be going on. If we have a fire attacker here, so this second row, going against grass, it's going to be doubly effective. Basically, fire is going to burn the grass and it's going to cause more damage than normal being present. In contrast, if we've got a water attacker over here against a fire defender, in general, water is going to put out the fire. And so a water attacker is going to be doubly effective against a fire defender. Now, one option in learning this table is going to go through and memorize all of the different combinations. However, come back to the end of this video, we're going to look at each one of these types individually and see what are their advantages and disadvantages. Pokemon battles are sometimes described as rock, paper, scissors, or described in the D&D world.
What's going to happen?
And take your other hand, and you either make a boulder, a piece of paper, or a pair of shears, right? And we do it on 3.
To be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure what's happening either.
So in the basic game of rock, paper, scissors, we have the situation where a rock made as a fist is going to break the scissors, basically beat the scissors. So rock beats scissors. Scissors is going to be capable of cutting paper, and so scissors, kind of open fingers, looking like a scissors, is going to beat paper. And then paper is going to be able to cover a rock. And so in that way, paper is going to cover up the rock. Later in this video, I'm going to describe the advantages and disadvantages of different types of Pokemon in Pokemon battles. And so to help better understand how this is going to work, I'm going to use that format in taking a look at rock, paper, scissors. So in this case, we're going to be taking a look at rock as our entry point, and this is going to be the equivalent of the Pokemon that you're looking at. That Pokemon is going to be defending against some other Pokemon. So in this case, the rock is going to be competing against paper, or the rock could be attacking. In this case, the rock is going to be attacking scissors. So in the game of rock, paper, scissors, paper is going to be greater than rock. And so rock is going to be weak to paper because paper is going to beat it. However, rock is going to be super effective at scissors because rock is going to break the scissors. Similarly, if we take a look at paper as the Pokemon or the situation, the characteristic that we're interested in, the type that we're interested in, paper is going to be weak to scissors because scissors is going to be capable of cutting the paper. But paper, if it's attacking rock, is going to be super effective because paper is going to cover the rock and it's going to beat the rock. And then finally, in the example of rock, paper, scissors, we take a look at the scissors as the condition or the trait that we're starting with. Scissors are going to be weak to rock because a rock is going to break scissors. But scissors are going to be super effective against paper because scissors are going to be able to cut the paper. Okay, so rock is going to beat scissors, scissors is going to beat paper. But even a game like rock, paper, scissors can be made more complicated.
Ready? Boulder, park your shears.
I'm
okay.
so disappointed right now.
On 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. I punch her.
A more complicated form of rock, paper, scissors was popularized in the television show The Big Bang Theory.
Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock was created by internet pioneer Sam Cass as an improvement on the classic game Rock, Paper, Scissors.
If we take a look at the rules of rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, it looks really complicated. But if we take a look at it in a little bit more detail, focus in on the rock up here at the top, what we can see is that the rock is going to be at the disadvantage to 2 situations, but it's going to have the advantage to 2 other situations. And so if we take this complicated diagram and put it into that same format as we looked at with rock, paper, scissors, we may be able to better understand what's going on. So looking at the 5 conditions of rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, it's going to be similar to the 18 Pokemon types that are going to be present in the game. So we start out with rock. What we can see is that paper is going to cover rock, and so rock is going to be weak to paper, but we also in the rules are going to have Spock vaporizing the rock. And so if situation where somebody has paper or Spock, they're going to beat the rock. Rock, however, is going to crush the scissors, or rock can crush the lizard. And so in that case, rock is going to have the advantage over scissors and lizard. We take a look at the paper situation, the paper condition, like the types of the Pokemon. Scissors is going to be able to cut the paper. The lizard is going to be able to eat paper. And so in those circumstances, paper is going to be weak to scissors and paper is going to be weak to the lizard. In contrast, paper, like in the game rock, paper, scissors, paper is going to cover the rock, and in the rules, paper is going to disprove Spock. And so paper is going to be super effective at beating rock and at beating Spock. Scissors is the last of the basic conditions in rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Like the game, rock is going to break the scissors, but we're also going to have the situation that Spock is going to be able to smash the scissors. And so scissors are going to be weak to rock and weak to Spock. In contrast, the scissors are going to be able to cut the paper, like in the original game, but scissors can also decapitate the lizard. And so scissors are going to be super effective at attacking paper or the lizard. So looking at the new conditions of the game, lizard, like the types of the Pokemon, is going to be weak to rock because rock can crush the lizard, and the lizard is going to be weak to scissors because scissors can decapitate the lizard. Similar to what we've already talked about, the lizard is going to be super effective against paper because the lizard can eat the paper, and in the new one, the lizard can poison Spock. And so the lizard is going to be super effective at paper and Spock. So the final condition or state in rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock is going to be Spock. And so we take a look at that. Spock is going to be weak to paper because paper is going to be able to disprove Spock. Spock is going to be weak to lizard because lizard is going to be able to poison Spock. In contrast, Spock is going to be super effective against the rock because it's going to be able to vaporize the rock, and Spock is going to be able to crush the scissors. And so Spock is going to be super effective or beat the rock or the scissors. So from this introduction, we can take a look at each of the different 18 Pokemon types and understand what are the advantages and disadvantages associated with it. Now keep in mind, in rock, paper, scissors, or even rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, it's a complete victory based on the condition. In Pokemon battles, you're going to be attacking the opponent's hit points, basically their health points. And so a bigger attack is going to take away more health points from that Pokemon. It's going to do more damage, and it's going to be more likely to put that Pokemon in a situation where you're going to be able to beat it or basically cause that Pokemon to faint. So what I've done is taken that original chart of the 18 different attacker types compared with the 18 different defender types and put it into the same basic format so that we can look at advantages and disadvantages of each of the 18 types of Pokemon. So for each one of these different charts, we're going to have the original Pokemon types. This is the Pokemon you're trying to get information about. We're going to have what the Pokemon is going to be weak to. And so in this case, in red, we're going to be looking at the Pokemon types that are going to be extra effective, basically have an advantage at attacking that Pokemon. In addition, we're going to take a look at what are those Pokemon types that are going to be at a disadvantage to our, in this case, bug Pokemon attacking them. And so the Pokemon are going to be super effective at attacking the types that are found in these green boxes. Now, they're also going to be kind of resistance, and that's basically that half. That's going to make it a little bit more complicated than I want to get in this video. But basically, in the yellow, these are going to be attacks that are not overly effective. They're not just a straightforward attack. These are going to be attacks that are basically weaker than normal. In addition, in the bottom here in white, we're going to take a look at bugs being, or in the case, the Pokemon being immune to a specific attack, or a Pokemon having no effect on a type of Pokemon. So the first one we're going to take a look at is going to be the bug Pokemon. The bug Pokemon are going to be weak to flying, rock, and fire. And so if we think about this, and again, try to understand why it's set up this way, flying things like birds are going to be great at capturing insects. And so flying is going to be very effective at attacking bugs. Rocks, sadly, are going to be very easy at smashing bugs. And so a bug is going to be very weak to a rock-type Pokemon attack. And then finally, fire is going to be able to burn up bugs. And so basically, a bug is going to be weak to a fire attack. Now, if we take a look at where that bug is going to be advantageous in attacking different types of Pokemon, we can see that bug are going to be super effective at attacking grass Pokemon. And so if you think about that, bugs basically eat plants and they eat grass. And so they're going to be very effective at that. Bug is going to be super effective against Psychic. And so we can think Psychic as being like Mind. And, you got a bunch of gnats flying around your head. It's going to interfere with your concentration. And so it's going to disrupt what that Psychic Pokemon is capable of doing. And then finally, the Bug is going to be super effective at attacking things in the dark. Bugs often come out and are more active in the dark. And so you can think about it that way. Okay, the second type of Pokemon we're going to take a look at is going to be the dark Pokemon. And so we see that the dark Pokemon are going to be weak to fighting, bug, and fairy. And so if we take a look at this, think about fighting, kind of good versus evil, dark as dark or dark as evil. Basically, dark coming up against a fighting Pokemon, the fighting Pokemon attacking it. We're basically depicting that as the fighter being good, defeating dark's evil. As we mentioned on a previous slide, bugs attacking dark are going to be effective because bugs come out and are more active in the dark. And then finally, if we take a look at fairies, fairies and fairy tales, basically you're taking a look at good prevailing over evil, living happily ever after. And so fairies are going to have an advantage. They're going to be especially strong at attacking dark. And so basically dark is going to be weak to fairies. If we take a look at the immunity, in this case, psychic attacking dark is not going to have an effect. And so we can think about that. You really can't turn an evil person around just simply talking to them and making them think about what they're doing. And so a psychic attack is going to be ineffective against dark because dark is immune to psychic. If we take a look at where dark is going to have the advantages when they're making their attack, dark is going to be super effective against ghosts. Dark is going to be super effective against ghost and super effective against psychic. Okay, so dark, if you want to think about it in terms of psychic, dark, causes fear. Fear of the mind, causes distraction, fear of the dark. And so dark attacking psychic is going to disrupt kind of the mind and disrupt the psychic attacks. Dark attacking ghosts, basically dark is going to corrupt these ghosts and make them into evil spirits. And so basically causing them to take more damage than normal. The next type of Pokemon we're going to take a look at are going to be Dragon Pokemon. Dragon Pokemon are going to be weak to Ice, Dragon, and Fairy. And so we try to think about that and kind of explain what's going on in terms that we can understand and remember. Dragons are like lizards. Lizards are cold-blooded, and so they need heat to move. And so if you take a lizard and put it in a cold environment, it's going to be sluggish. If you attack a dragon with ice, it's going to make that dragon sluggish, and it's going to make it more damage on that. Dragon against dragon is going to be effective. And so dragon attacks on a dragon are going to have 2 times the effect, whether you're taking a look at it, defending against a dragon or attacking against a dragon. Over here on this side, they're both going to be effective because basically dragons are massive creatures that have a lot of power associated with it. And so they're going to be very good at attacking one another. And then finally, we've got fairies here. Fairies are magical creatures. And so basically in fairy tales, fairies and magic are going to be used to defeat the dragon. And so in this case, a dragon is going to be weak to fairy attacks. In contrast, though, a dragon attacking a fairy isn't going to be really effective because that fairy has magic and can avoid the effects of the dragon's attack. And so if you've got a dragon attacking a fairy Pokemon, you can bash at it all day, but you're not going to have an effect at attacking the Pokemon, attacking its, causing damage and causing its hit points to fall towards defeat and fainting. The next type of Pokemon we're going to take a look at are going to be electric Pokemon, like Pikachu. Electric Pokemon are going to be weak to ground. And so if we think about that, Earth is not a good conductor of electricity. And so it basically prevents electricity from spreading. And so a ground attack onto electricity is going to limit the spread of electricity, and it's going to limit its effects. And so electric is going to be weak to ground. If we take a look at when electric is attacking either flying Pokemon or water Pokemon is going to be very, very effective. Electric, like lightning, is going to be great at hitting things in the air. And so electric, like lightning, can attack flying things. Water is going to be a great conductor of electricity. That's why you don't have electric outlets near a pool or near the bathtub. And so electric is going to be super effective at attacking water. In addition, as we said, ground kind of limits the spread of electricity, and so electric attacking a ground-type Pokemon is not going to have an effect because that ground-type Pokemon is basically to be immune to the lightning effects. Ground, like dirt, is not going to be a conductor of electricity, and it's going to prevent it from spreading. If we take a look at the fairy-type Pokemon, we can see that fairy types are going to be weak to poison and weak to steel. And so if we think about that in terms of fairy tales, fairies and fairy tales are especially susceptible to poison, and so that's going to cause them more damage. And in many fairy tales, fairies can't use their magic when they're either touching metal or they're enclosed in a metal cage. And so steel is going to be very effective at attacking Pokemon. As described in the dragon slide, the dragon is going to basically have no effect on the fairies. The fairies are going to be immune to dragon attacks because they can use their magic to avoid the effects of the dragon. We take a look at when the fairy type is attacking. We're seeing it's going to be very effective against fighting types, dragon types, and dark types. And so we've talked about dark and dragon already. Kind of a reminder, fairy attacking dark, like in fairy tales, good prevailing over evil, living happily ever after. And so fairy attacks on dark are going to be very effective. Fairies can use their magic in fairy tales to defeat dragons, and so we see that fairies are going to be super effective against dragons. And then finally, fairies against fighting. Again, in fairy tales, you've got fairies using their magic to kind of cause fighters to do what they want, to kind of take over fighters in some way. And so the fairies are going to be super effective at attacking the fighters. If we take a look at the fighting type Pokemon, we see that the fighting type Pokemon are going to be weak to flying, psychic, and fairy. And so if we take a look at this, flying animals, flying birds are going to have the high ground. They're going to be able to swoop in and cause damage. And, if you ever try to catch a bird, it's hard. Try to catch a butterfly. You need a net to be able to do it. And so flying type Pokemon are going to have the advantage over fighting type Pokemon. Psychic is going to have an advantage over fighting. And so basically think about it as kind of mind over matter, brains over brawn. Psychic is going to be able to defeat Pokemon. Psychic is going to be able to defeat fighting. And so they're going to be more effective at attacking it. And then finally, as we said on a previous slide, fairy attacking fighting, we're looking at them to using their magic to beat you. Now, if we take a look at fighting Pokemon, attacking other types of Pokemon, we're going to see that these fighting type Pokemons are going to be super effective at normal, rock, steel, ice, and dark. And so if we think about this, fighting against normal, if you're a normal person going up against Mike Tyson, chances are Mike Tyson's going to win. And so fighting is going to be super effective at defeating normal Pokemon. If we take a look at fighting versus rock, take a look at fighters, take a look at martial arts experts. They're always breaking concrete blocks. And concrete blocks are basically like rocks. And so fighting is going to be super effective against rocks. Fighting against steel. Again, you look at bodybuilders and they do these demonstrations of their strength. And they basically take metal bars and bend it. And so fighting is going to be strong against steel type Pokemon. Fighting against ice type Pokemon. Again, martial artists often use ice blocks that they smash, kind of like the concrete blocks over here. And so fighting is going to be super effective against ice. And then finally, fighting against dark. Again, that concept of fighters being depicted as good versus dark's evil, good defeating evil. And so we've got fighting beating the dark Pokemon. We take a look at fire-type Pokemon. We see that fire-type Pokemon are going to be weak to ground Pokemon, rock Pokemon, and water Pokemon. And so we take a look at this. Fire Pokemon are going to be weak to ground, if you want to think about that. If you've got a fire going, you shovel some dirt on it, you're going to smother the fire, and you're going to put it out. Similarly, fire against water. Water is going to be very effective against fire because, you got a fire going, you spray it with a hose, you get some water on it, and it's going to put the fire out. In terms of rock, think about rock in terms of a fire pit. You've got a fire, it's probably not in the open, you've got some rocks built around it, they're going to prevent the fire from spreading. So because of that, rock is going to be super effective at attacking fire. If we take a look at fire as the attacker, fire is going to be super effective at bug, steel, grass, and ice. And so we try to explain that. As we described with the bug Pokemon, bugs burn up in fire. So fire is going to be super effective at attacking bugs. Fire against steel. Fire is going to be able to melt the steel and damage it in that way. So fire is going to be super effective against steel. Fire against grass. The reason we want to have a rock pit or a fire pit with rock around it, you don't want it to spread. Fire gets onto grass. Grass is very flammable. It is going to be able to kind of spread around and spread that fire. And then finally, fire against ice. Fire is going to melt the ice, and it's going to disrupt what that ice is going to be able to do because it's no longer solid ice. It is going to be, less than that. We take a look at flying Pokemon. Flying Pokemon are going to be weak to rock, electric, and ice. And so flying Pokemon in relationship to rock, think about the story, you kill two birds with one stone. Rock and maybe a sling or a slingshot are going to be able to knock down flying things. And so there's going to be a disadvantage to flying. And so rock is going to be very effective at attacking flying Pokemon. Electric attacking flying Pokemon, this is the example of lightning. Lightning is going to strike things in the air first. And so the electric is going to attack the flying Pokemon and have extra effective attacks. And then finally, ice in relationship to flying. Think about this. Birds fly south in the winter. They try to avoid the cold. And so ice is going to be damaging to these flying Pokemon. Flying type Pokemon are going to be immune to ground attacks. So you think about it, you got a bird flying around in the air, you got something crawling around on the ground, they're not going to be able to interact with that flying bird or insect. And so ground type Pokemon are going to have no effect on flying type Pokemon. If we take a look at flying as the attacker, we see that flying is going to be super effective at fighting, at bugs, and at grass. And so if we take a look at this, we've already talked about fighters. Flying against fighters, flying things have the high ground. Flying is able to swoop in and, kind of swoop back out before a fighter can, get a response. So flying is going to be super effective against fighting Pokemon. Flying against bugs, we've talked about before. Flying like birds are going to be able to eat the bugs out of the air. So flying is going to be super effective against bugs. And then flying against grass. Flying things like birds are going to either eat the grass or they're going to take the grass and plants and use them to make nests. And so they're basically going to be damaging the grass type Pokemon in that way. The next category are going to be the ghost type Pokemon. The ghost type Pokemon are going to be weak to ghost and dark Pokemon. And so basically kind of ghosts on ghosts. They're kind of wispy creatures. And so basically a whisper creature attacking another wispy creature is going to be effective. And similarly, ghost attacking ghost over here is going to be effective as well. Dark attacks on ghosts, as we've talked about previously. Dark can corrupt the ghosts, make them evil, and so a dark attack on ghosts is going to be super effective. If we take a look at immunity down here, we can see that both fighting type Pokemon and normal type Pokemon are not going to be able to make attacks on ghosts. Ghosts are kind of ethereal. They don't have substance. They're wispy creatures. And so you really can't punch a ghost. And so normal and fighting is going to have no effect on ghost type Pokemon. As we mentioned, ghost on ghost action is going to be very strong. It's going to be very effective. So ghost attackers on ghost defenders is going to be very effective. Ghosts on psychic. Ghosts, they're able to trick the mind into believing things. They're able to distract the mind. And so ghosts are going to be effective at attacking psychic type Pokemon. And then finally, ghosts are going to have no effect on normal Pokemon. So think about it. Ghosts are really not going to have any effect on a normal individual because it doesn't interact with them in some way. And so ghost versus normal is going to have no effect. The next category, the next type of Pokemon are going to be the grass type Pokemon. The grass type Pokemon are going to be weak to flying, poison, bug, fire, and ice. And so we've talked about this before. Flying things like birds are going to eat the grass. They're going to pull up plants and pull up grass to make their nests. So flying is going to be strong attackers on grass. Poison, you think of like herbicides, weed killer. That's really good at killing the grass. And so poison type Pokemon are going to be effective at attacking grass. Bugs, as we've talked about before, bugs eat the grass, like a locust infestation. Locusts are going to go through and strip away at the grass. So bugs are going to be effective on grass. Fire against grass. Fire is going to be able to burn up the grass. And then finally, ice against grass. Grass, like plants, think about frost warnings. Ice is going to be able to freeze the grass and kill it in that way. We take a look at grass against ground, rock, and water. We're going to see that's going to be very effective. Grass kind of grows on the ground. It absorbs nutrients from the ground, and therefore grass is going to be super effective at attacking ground-type Pokemon. Grass versus rock. If you've got a concrete driveway or maybe an asphalt driveway, you've got some few cracks in it. Grass starting to grow in those cracks is going to cause the rock, the concrete, or the asphalt to break up. And so grass is going to grow in the cracks and cause the rock to break apart. And then finally, grass versus water. Grass absorbs water to grow, and so therefore grass is going to be super effective at attacking water-type Pokemon. Taking a look at the ground-type Pokemon, what we can see is that ground is going to be weak to water, to grass, and ice. Take a look at it. Water is going to be able to erode away the ground, and so water attacks are going to be very effective against ground. Grass, as we said previously, is capable of growing on the ground and drawing nutrients from the ground, and so grass attacks on ground is going to be very effective. And then ice on ground, kind of ice can freeze the ground, cause cracks in it, and so it's going to be effective in that way. Electric attacks on ground. Ground is going to be immune to electric, as we talked about before. Ground is going to be able to, like the ground wire in your house, it's going to be able to prevent the spread of the electricity. We take a look at ground as the attacker. Ground is going to be super effective against poison, against rock, against steel, against fire, and against electric. In terms of ground, ground is able to absorb the poison, draw the poison out. And so ground is going to be super effective against the poison. Ground can bury the rocks and kind of prevent the rocks from doing what the rocks need to do. Ground versus steel. You've got steel buildings, you've got an earthquake, all of a sudden, that building falls down. And so the ground then is going to damage that metal infrastructure and cause the building to collapse. Ground versus fire. If you've got a fire going, you shovel some dirt on it, you're going to smother the fire and put it out. And then finally, ground versus electric. Ground is able to kind of limit the spread of electricity and basically kind of blunt what that electricity is going to be able to use. And then finally, ground is going to have no effect on flying Pokemon. You got something crawling on the ground, it's not going to be able to affect birds or other things that are flying around within the air. Taking a look at ice Pokemon, ice we're going to see are going to be weak to fighting type Pokemon, rock type Pokemon, steel, and fire. And so if we take a look at it, fighting type Pokemon like martial artists will often break blocks of ice to demonstrate their strength. And so that's the advantage of fighting over ice. Rock, rocks can smash ice. And so rock is going to be effective against ice in that way. Steel against ice, think about an ice pick or an ice breaker. Steel is going to be able to break up the ice because it's much harder than the ice. And then finally, fire against ice. Fire is going to cause the ice to melt and therefore disrupt what the ice is going to be capable of doing. Ice, though, is going to be super effective at flying, ground, grass, and dragon. Talked about flying birds. Birds are going to migrate south for the winter to get away from the cold, and so ice is going to be effective against flying. Ice can freeze and cause the ground to crack, and so ice is going to be effective against ground. Ice can, like a frost warning, is going to be able to freeze the grass and kill the grass. And then finally, ice versus dragons. Dragons, like lizards, are cold-blooded creatures. Well, at least cold-blooded creatures. Lizards are cold-blooded creatures. I'm not sure about dragons, but for this example, we're going to say dragons are cold-blooded. Ice versus dragon, it's going to limit the ability of that dragon to move. Taking a look at normal type Pokemon, this one's relatively easy. The normal type Pokemon are going to be weak to the fighting Pokemon. So if you think about a normal person going up against Mike Tyson, chances are Mike Tyson's going to win. And so fighting is going to be very effective against normal type Pokemon. Now we're going to have ghost Pokemon. They're going to be present here. Normal Pokemon are going to be immune to ghost attacks, and normal Pokemon are going to have no effect on ghost attack. And so basically ghosts aren't going to be able to interact with or cause damage to or damage from normal type Pokemon. Taking a look at poison type Pokemon, poison is going to be weak to ground and weak to psychic type Pokemon. So we take a look at this. The ground is going to be able to absorb the poison, draw out the poison, kind of minimize the effect of the poison. So ground attacks on poison are going to be very effective. Psychic on poison, psychic, think mind, think kind of coming up for a cure for the poison. So psychic attacks are going to be very effective against poison. Poison as the attacker, poison attacking grass or poison attacking fairy. And again, we've talked about this before. Poison attacking grass, like weed killers or herbicides. And so poison can poison the grass and kill it. Poison against fairies. Fairies and fairy tales are susceptible to poison. And therefore, poison is going to have a super effect on these fairy Pokemon. Poison attacks on steel, though, are going to have no effect because, let's be honest, what's poison going to do on a steel, piece of steel or a piece of metal? And so poison on steel is going to have no effect. Taking a look at the psychic type Pokemon, we see that the psychic type Pokemon are going to be weak to bug, to ghost, and dark. And so psychic, like mind, bug Pokemon, a swarm of gnats is going to distract the mind and interfere with the psychic ability. Ghost Pokemon are going to be able to trick the mind into believing things and again disrupt what that psychic Pokemon is going to be able to doing. And then finally, dark is going to be able to corrupt the mind of this psychic. The dark is going to be able to, we got the fear of the dark, and that's going to disrupt what that psychic Pokemon is doing. Psychic versus flying or psychic versus poison. Psychic attacking a flying Pokemon. Think about, getting distracted when you're flying through the air and you're not thinking about flying. And all of a sudden, if you're not thinking about flying, you're going to crash. So a psychic attack on a flying Pokemon can make them crash and be very effective. Psychic against poison. Psychic is going to be very effective at poison because it, basically comes up with a cure for the poison. Psychic versus dark. I think we've talked about this one previously. You really can't change dark or evil just by talking to it and getting it to think about being better. Rock-type Pokemon here are going to be weak to fighting, to ground, to steel, to water, and grass. Okay, so rock against fighting. Martial artists like fighters are going to break concrete blocks, so fighting is capable of breaking the rocks. Ground is going to be capable of burying the rocks, and so, kind of preventing the rock from being seen or having an action. Steel is going to be harder to rock, and so you're using steel tools like an axe pick to break up the rock, and so steel is going to be very effective against rock. Water is going to be able to erode the rock away. Kind of think about the Grand Canyon. So water eroding away at the rock is going to damage it and diminish its effects. And then grass, again, as we've talked about before, grass growing in little cracks in your concrete driveway is going to cause more cracks to appear because it's going to break up the concrete. So grass is going to be capable of breaking up the rock. Rock is going to be super effective against flying type, bug type, fire type, and ice. Rock against flying type, hitting two birds with one stone. Slingshot, knocking something out of the air. Rock versus bug is going to be very effective at smashing the bugs. Rock is going to be limiting the fire, like our example with the fire pit. Rock around the fire to kind of prevent it from spreading. And then finally, rock can be used to break through the ice. And so rock is going to be super effective against ice. Taking a look at our steel-type Pokemon. Steel-type Pokemon are going to be weak to fighting. They're going to be weak to ground and weak to fire. Fighting, like martial artists or bodybuilders, they basically bend metal rods to show their strength. And so fighting is going to be effective against steel. Ground versus steel, that was the example of an earthquake causing damage to the steel infrastructure of a building and causing it to collapse. And then fire is going to be able to melt steel and damage it in that way. Now, steel is going to be immune to poison because, let's be honest, what's poison going to do to a block of metal? Steel is going to be super effective as the attacker, attacking our rock-type Pokemon, our ice-type Pokemon, and our fairy-type Pokemon. Steel is going to be able to be used to make picks that can break apart rocks, and so steel is going to be super effective against rocks. An ice pick is going to be used to break up the ice, so steel is going to break up ice. And then steel against magic fairy creatures, at least in fairy tales, they can't use their magic when they're touching metal or they're surrounded by metal. And so steel is going to be super effective at attacking fairy-type Pokemon. And then the final type of Pokemon are going to be the water Pokemon. So take a look at this. Water-type Pokemon are going to be weak to grass and electric. Grass is able to absorb the water to grow, and so basically diminish the water in that way. Electric is going to be able to spread rapidly throughout the water. Think about a down power line in a storm. They tell you don't go near it because they don't want you to be electrocuted. So both grass and water are going to be very, very effective at attacking water-type Pokemon. In contrast, water as the attacker is going to be super effective at ground, at rock, and at fire. Ground is going to be able to erode away and wash away the ground. Water is going to be able to erode away the rock, like in the Grand Canyon. And then water is basically used to put out fire and basically is going to be able to kind of eliminate the fire there. And so water is going to be super effective against ground, rock, and fire. So hopefully now you have a little bit better understanding about what is present within this chart. Got a little bit of context, a little bit of explanation, so it's not simply going through and memorizing this chart. You've got a way in which to try to understand what is going on when you're taking a look at the type of your attacking Pokemon in relationship to the type of the defending Pokemon, and be able to determine what type of attacks, at least types, are going to be strongest and what are going to be those situations where your Pokemon is going to be at a disadvantage to a different attacker. If you like this video, please like and subscribe it. I'm going to be putting out more of these videos as I try to learn the Pokemon game in general and Pokemon battling in particular in preparation for attending the North America Pokemon Championships in 2025. Thank you and have a great day.